The basics with Jayda InStitches.
Hey everybody! The next in our series of the basics tutorial is the double crochet. The double crochet is extremely important if you're going to do a granny square or a whole host of regular lace patterns. Double crochet is a very common stitch and it's not that difficult to do. It's kind of like doing the single crochet but, you know, times two. And I'll show you exactly what I mean. So grab your hook and yarn and let's get started. In order to make our double crochet sampler, we need some yarn. You don't need very much. This is just sort of a scrap ball I had lying around. You need a hook that works with the yarn you're using. In this case, I'm using worsted weight yarn, which is about a size 4. If you look at the yarn label of your yarn, there should be a 4. This is about a 4. And the hook I'm using with it is a 4.25 millimeter. Now you can use a 4.5, a 5, a 5.5, even a 6 millimeter. Because this is a sampler, there's no specific gauge to worry about. Just make sure that your hook works comfortably with the yarn you've chosen. You also need a pair of scissors just to finish off. And once you have those 3 things, we can begin. We're going to work our sampler back and forth. So we're going to make rows going left to right. You can use the double crochet stitch in many different ways, back and forth, in the round, but today I'm just going to show it to you going straight rows. So not in the round, nothing super fancy, just straight rows. So in order to begin that, we have to start by making a slip knot. If you have some questions about making the slip knot, I have a slip knot tutorial, which I will also post in the description box below. Once you have your slip knot made, make sure that it moves around on your hook nice and comfortably. You don't want it to be too tight or too loose. Then, in order to begin our row, we are going to make some chains. I like to work samplers on 20 stitches. So let's begin by chaining 20. In order to chain, you take your yarn, wrap it around your hook, and pull that back through the loop that was on your hook. Wrap your yarn around your hook and pull it back through the loop on your hook. You can use your hand to wrap the yarn any way you feel is comfortable. There is no right or wrong way. It's whatever's comfortable for you. And all you want to do is just keep pulling that loop. Pull a new loop that you create by wrapping your yarn through the loop on your hook. You want to go ahead and make 20 of these. Be nice and comfortable with your stitches. Don't be too tight. Try not to be too loose. Just work at a nice, relaxed pace. This is not a rush. So if you need to pause the video and work on your 20 crocheted chains, then go ahead and do that. But if chaining is now an easier thing for you to do, then get your 20 chains and I will show you what to do next. Once you've chained 20, we are almost ready to start double crochet. Because we are working in straight rows, we need to be able to get our work up to the height at which a double crochet tops out at. So what does that mean exactly? Well, if I were to just start trying to work into the first stitch next to my hook, that would be very, very difficult. So we want to start with what's called a turning chain. A turning chain for a double crochet is usually 3 chains. Now because I've already created a 20 chain sort of foundation chain row, I want to add a couple more chains. But I'm going to use the chain 3 that I begin this row with as a double crochet, and I'll explain that in a minute. So I already have 20. Because I want my first double crochet, or my first chain 3 that counts as a double crochet, to sort of be at the very end, I'm just going to chain 2 more. 1, 2. So if I move my thumb back, you can see that there are 1, 2, 3 chains away from my hook. This is going to count as a double crochet. It's 3 chains high. That's typically how big a double crochet winds up being. And this chain 3 at the beginning of my row is going to count as a double crochet. You'll see that when you're working patterns. Chain 3 counts as a double crochet, and that's what they mean. So why the chain 3? Well, let's work into the next stitch, which will be the 4th chain from the hook. So if I straighten this out again, you can count backwards. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the 4th chain from the hook. The loop that's still on your hook does not count. That is not a chain. That's just the loop sitting on your hook. So skip these first 3, identify the 4th, and that is the chain we are going to do our first double crochet stitch into. Double crochet. If you're familiar with the single crochet, then this is basically that times 2. And crochet is the French word for hook. So this is sort of an easy way to remember it. You're going to double hook. So that means you wrap your yarn around your hook to start, because you need an extra loop. Identify that 4th chain, take your hook, and put your hook through that 4th chain. There are now 3 loops on your hook. And this is how we create the double crochet stitch. You need to wrap your yarn again. So wrap your yarn around your hook. It doesn't have to be a full wrap. You can go this way if you want. You can go that way if you want. All you want to do is use your hook to pull up a loop from that stitch. So now you have 3 real loops on your hook. It should look something like this. There's the loop that started on your hook. There's the loop that you created by wrapping your yarn around your hook. And here's the loop that you've pulled up in the working stitch. So when they say pull up a loop in the next stitch, that's what they mean. You have 3 true loops on your hook. Now, the double hooking part. To double crochet or double hook, you need to hook twice. Wrap your yarn around your hook because you need something to pull through these loops. Pull that yarn back through the first 2 loops. You should now have 2 loops left on your hook. Your first one and the new loop that was created when you pulled that yarn through the first 2. Wrap again and take your hook and pull that loop back through the last 2 loops on your hook. And that is a double crochet. You will probably notice it looks a little funny. It maybe doesn't sit quite straight, or it just sort of looks like you're starting to create like a little leaf or something at the end of your chain. Don't worry. As you create more double crochets along this row, it will sort of pull it into place and straighten up. So now we're going to try that again. We're going to double crochet into the next chain on our chained foundation row. So we identify the next chain, and that's this one right here. And we begin by wrapping our yarn, putting our hook through that chain. So it looks like you've got 3 loops, and you do, but you need to pull up a loop in your work. So you wrap your yarn and pull up a loop. Now you have 3 true loops on your hook. So now we double hook, double crochet, wrap your yarn, pull it back through those first 2 loops, wrap your yarn, pull it back through the last 2 loops. And that leaves you with a loop on your hook. That's the thing about crochet. You should always have a loop on your hook left after you've done any stitch. There should always be a loop left because that's what connects you to your work. So now we've got 3 double crochets along our foundation chain row. Let's do it again. Identify the next chain, that's this one here. Create a loop. Put your hook through that first chain. So it looks like you've got 3, but you see you're still attached to your work. So you need to pull up a loop. So you wrap your yarn and pull a loop up through that chain. Now you have 3 true loops on your hook. Wrap your yarn, pull it back through the first 2, wrap your yarn, pull it back through the last 2. And you're left with 1 loop on your hook, and that's what connects you to your work. You now have 3 true double crochets, 1 chain 3 that counts as a double crochet in this case. So technically you have 4. Let's do it again. Identify the next chain. That's this one right here. Wrap your yarn to create a loop. Put your hook through that chain. You're attached, even though it looks like you have 3. You want to pull up a loop. So wrap and pull a loop up in that chain. So now you have 3 loops on your hook. So 2 true and 1 that's a bit funny. Wrap your yarn, pull through the first 2 loops. Wrap your yarn and pull through the last 2 loops. And that is how you double crochet. Always begin with a wrap first. Put your hook through the next chain. Grab your yarn and pull up a loop so that you have 3 real loops on your hook. Wrap your yarn again. Pull back through 2. Oops, try not to split your yarn. Wrap your yarn again. Pull back through the last 2. Next, wrap your yarn, put your hook through the next chain, pull up a loop. 1, 2, 3. Wrap your yarn, pull back through 2. Try not to split your yarn. Wrap your yarn, pull back through 2. Next, wrap your yarn, put your hook through that chain, pull up a loop. 1, 2, 3. Wrap your yarn, pull back through 2. Wrap your yarn, pull back through 2. All right, you've got a few more left to go in that foundation chain, so I'm going to let you give it a try. Put 1 double crochet in each of those chains all the way back to the beginning, and at the end, we'll count them up. Once you get to the end, it is time to count your stitches. You can count them across the top, but because the double crochet is a tall stitch, sometimes it's easier to actually touch or count the physical stitch itself. So remember, I said that the chain 3 that we made at the beginning of the row is going to count as a double crochet. So there's the first one. Then you've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. There's the last one. So you should have something that looks like this. That's 20 double crochets. That includes that chain 3 at the beginning. This is what you do for the second row. Like we began, we need to bring our work up to the right height. So in order to do that, we need to create a pretend double crochet or another chain 3. So we're going to chain 3. Now we flip our work. So you turn your work over so that now you're working back across the first row you made, but you're still working in the same direction that you began your first row. So always turn your work back and forth when you're working flat, back and forth. That's literally what it means, back and forth. You just always turn your work so that you're always working in the same direction. This chain 3 counts as a double crochet. And here is the funky part. You see this little stitch right here? I'm going to point to it with my thumb. That is the top of this double crochet down here, the last double crochet we made in that row. And because we chained 3, and that chain 3 is going to count as a double crochet, we are going to skip this little chain, this stitch. We are not going to work it because this chain 3 is going to pretend to be coming out of that little chain there, that stitch. So skip that first stitch and identify the next stitch, which is this one, which sits right on top of the second double crochet in the row. And now we begin again. Wrap your yarn, put your hook all the way through that stitch, so both of its loops sit on top of your hook, just like that. Grab your yarn and pull up a loop. You have 3 loops on your hook. Wrap your yarn, pull back through 2, wrap your yarn, pull back through 2. Now there's going to be a little bit of a hole there, so don't worry about it. This is just a sampler. But you understand now that the chain 3 brings you up to the right height so that you can continue double crocheting and your work doesn't do this at the ends. Now you identify the next stitch, and at this point it gets a little easier. Working into chains can sometimes be a little troublesome, but it's pretty easy to always identify the next stitch you're going to work when you're working double crochet because the stitches are so large and just they stand out so well. So this is the next chain or the next stitch we're working, and we wrap, put our hook through the whole thing so both loops sit on top of our hook, grab the yarn, and pull up a loop. So you've got 1, 2, 3 loops. Wrap your yarn, pull it back through the first 2, wrap your yarn, pull it back through the last 2, just like we did on the foundation row. And that is the double crochet. You can work all successive rows now, as many as you want, or you can only work 2 or 3. It's entirely up to you. The whole point of a sampler is to provide practice of a particular stitch. So now that you know how to do the double crochet, you can make a blanket. You can use cotton and make a scrubby or a kitchen dishcloth. You can make a face cloth if you want. The double crochet stitch is great. It's quick, it's tall, and it's still pretty neat and tidy. If you want to fasten off, once you get to the end of your little project, it's exactly the same as fastening off with most other stitches. But let me just get to the end of this row and I'll show you what I mean. Alright, I'm just nearing the end of my second row and I want to show you what it should look like. So remember, you've got your chain 3 at the beginning of your first row and that counts as a double crochet. And then you've got the real crochet, double crochet that sits next to it. But what does that look like on top? Well, it's pretty obvious that the next chain or the next stitch you need to work is this one. It sits right on top of this last double crochet. So I'm going to put a double crochet into it. But that will only leave me with 19 double crochets, and if I don't put a double crochet on top of this chain 3, then very soon my work is going to turn into a triangle. And I don't want that to happen. So when you get to the end of your row, make sure that you put a double crochet in the top of the chain 3, and you'll know that you've reached the chain 3 when you sort of pull your work apart and you realize that there's no easy sort of stitch to put your hook through. But if you count 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that's 3. So you wrap your yarn and you put your hook through a piece of that chain. It doesn't have to be the top 2 loops. It can be sort of the side loops, or at least try to get 2 of them on your hook. It doesn't have to be neat and tidy. Wrap and pull up a loop. Wrap, pull through 2. Wrap, pull through 2. And that puts a double crochet on top of the chain 3 that you made at the beginning of the last row. That will keep your work nice and flat and going straight up and down. And if in doubt, always count. Start with the chain 3, that counts, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Ta-da! And there you go. That's a double crochet. Now if you want to chain 3 and turn your work and crochet all the way back, you can go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, back and forth, and make yourself a scarf. This is a great little starter for a lot of projects. And this is how you fasten off when you're finished. Once you get to the end of your last row and it's as big as you want, or it's as tall as you want, or you know you're finished crocheting, then you only have to snip your yarn. That's where the scissors come in handy. Make sure you snip a good amount, not too short but not too long either. Then you take this yarn and you wrap it around your hook almost as though you were going to crochet. Pull it back through that loop and just keep on pulling. You want that string to come all the way through that last loop. Then you pull it nice and tight, and you can weave this in. So you can grab a yarn needle and weave it back and forth through the sort of the back parts of these loops. And if you're changing colors, you can just work over top of it if you want to. But at least this little knot here helps to keep it from unraveling down the road. And that's that. And there you go. That wasn't so difficult, was it? The double crochet, a super good stitch to have in your repertoire, and the latest in our series of the basics. Be sure to check out the entire basics tutorial playlist, just in case you need a refresher on everything from a cinch circle all the way up to a treble crochet. We'll see you again really soon, everybody. Thanks!